envy thing rearing its head again. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Trayvon Martin had drugs in his system. This is turning out to be the Duke lacrosse case all over again. Trayvon Martin, the 17-year-old who was shot and killed by George Zimmerman, had the drug THC in his system the night of his death. That's the primary ingredient in marijuana. Revelation came as prosecutors in the case prepared to release the public hundreds of pages of new evidence, along with videos and crime scene photos. None of this information was in the charging affidavit. None of it. The charging affidavit contained only the fact that Zimmerman went out there and profiled Trayvon Martin. Even now, NBC News, and we can never forget what they did, NBC News doctored the 9/11 tape of Zimmerman's call to the cops to make it look like Zimmerman was profiling and was a racist and was only chasing Trayvon Martin because he was a black guy. They totally doctored that tape. The person that doctored it supposedly has been fired. 2 other people at NBC were fired shortly afterwards. We don't know who the original editor was who was canned. They haven't identified by name, but they've told us the person's been fired. The tape was doctored on 2 separate occasions. And even after all of that, what I said earlier about you can't humiliate the media, NBC News had a story this week in which they referred to George Zimmerman as a white man with Hispanic heritage. After all of the so-called embarrassment and humiliation that they should have felt and suffered over the journalistically criminal doctoring of the 9/11 tape, they didn't just leave something out of it. They put it in a different order. They made it sound like Zimmerman said something that he didn't say. He only identified Trayvon Martin as black after he was asked to by the dispatcher. He did not volunteer the information. The NBC edited version of the tape makes it look like that's the first thing that Zimmerman told him when he made the 9/11 call. The New York Times was the first to run the story that Zimmerman was a white Hispanic. It was the 5th time in the history of the New York Times anybody could find where they had done that. But NBC this week referred to Zimmerman as a white man with Hispanic heritage. Even after all of this new evidence is coming out, that Zimmerman was literally beat up, that Trayvon Martin had bruises on his knuckles, that they're the eyewitnesses now, that and a cop documenting Zimmerman's story almost step by step. This case is falling apart. Now Trayvon Martin, THC was found in his blood and in his urine. There's another thing. The autopsy showed that Zimmerman shot Martin from a distance of between 1 inch and 18 inches away, which bolsters Zimmerman's claim that he shot Martin during a struggle. Everybody else, the media, tried to make it look like Trayvon Martin was shot in cold blood by George Zimmerman, who was chasing after him and shot him from a distance without any provocation. And none of that was true. None of the way this story was originally reported, very little of it was true, just like the Duke lacrosse case. So now, in the New York Daily News today, is a column by Alan Dershowitz of Harvard Law. The headline says it all: drop George Zimmerman's murder charge. According to this column by Dershowitz, this new evidence is proof positive. Well, not proof positive, but it's highly likely here that George Zimmerman did indeed, as he said, acted in self-defense. Medical report by George Zimmerman, a white man with Hispanic heritage. Medical report by Zimmerman's doctors disclosed Zimmerman had a fractured nose, 2 black eyes, 2 lacerations on the back of his head, and a back injury on a day after the fatal shooting. If this evidence turns out to be valid, The prosecutor will have no choice but to drop the second-degree murder charge against Zimmerman if she wants to act ethically, lawfully, and professionally. There is, of course, no assurance that the special prosecutor handling the case will do the right thing, because until now her actions have been anything but ethical, lawful, and professional. That's Dershowitz, Harvard Law, a liberal, writing about a state attorney up in Jacksonville. I fully expect the Jacksonville affiliate, WOKV, to call the state attorney and ask them what they think of what Limbaugh said about what Dershowitz said.